Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Even and Wings podcast. This podcast is about border grassroots rugby, and today we've got another special guest. But before we start, I just want to say something to a friend of ours. He's been battling cancer for a while, and in 6 weeks he's going to know if it's gone to remission. So, Jamie, I just wanted to say we're thinking about you. It was definitely a shock for us hearing about it, but we're all behind you, and we know you're going to beat this thing. So, we're thinking about you. All right. So we've got a bit of a different guest today. It's not a player, it's actually a journalist. He was in high school with us at Hudson Park. And yeah, he's become quite a serious journalist. We'll show you some funny photos later about some of the big shoulders he's been rubbing against. But Ross Roche, welcome to the pod.
Thanks very much, Ivan. Nice to be here with you and Carl.
Coach Wings, how's it going?
Hey, thanks, Ivan. Nice to be here again. Yeah, Ross, it's Wings. Nobody here knows my name.
Yeah, and just before we start the questions, don't forget to like and subscribe, and please put your comments down. We're always interested to know what people have to say. Ross, let's start with your journey as a journalist. You started out at the Daily Dispatch, actually, and now you're up in Joburg. Just give us a bit of a background of about your career, basically.
Yeah, well, when I was still in school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and obviously they had those guys come and do their little presentations showing you how cool certain careers are. And I thought I wanted to do hospitality management. I thought it would be lekker to go and manage some big hotel somewhere overseas. And that was actually what I did first time out of school. I started studying hospitality management, and I realized it was 100% not for me. It was absolutely terrible. It takes someone, you got to take a lot of rubbish if you want to do that kind of job. And I don't think I really had I just couldn't handle that. So did a bit of work over a couple of years, and only about 4 years after school did I decide, I enjoy writing, I enjoy sport, why not link them? And then I studied journalism, went to varsity college for 2 years, got a diploma, and once I was finished there, back to East London and applied at the Daily Dispatch. Or I didn't actually apply at the Daily Dispatch. There weren't any options. There were very few options at the time. So I actually phoned the Daily Dispatch and I said, listen, I'm a recent graduate. Is there anything I can do? I will even shadow guys for free, just to get a bit of experience. So they called me in, and I ended up shadowing a guy in the sport department for 2 weeks. And the sport editor liked me, and he said, we've got a batch of interns starting in a month. Apply for that, and we'll see if you get in. And that's how I got in at the Daily Dispatch. Then 8 years later, I decided I'd sort of hit my ceiling. I wasn't really going anywhere there. The Dispatch was great. I was able to cover a whole range of different sports at the Dispatch, which really helped me. Obviously, I've got my main focus on rugby now, but I did everything at the Dispatch, from rowing to running, triathlon, cricket, rugby, water polo. You name it, motorsport. So that was very good experience for me. And as I said, after 8 years, I sort of hit my ceiling. I couldn't really go anywhere, and they weren't willing to promote me. So I thought I would leave and maybe try my hand at a bit of freelance. But I chose the worst timing ever, just before COVID hit. And then COVID came through like a tornado, and I didn't have a job for over a year until I managed to hook an interview with The Citizen. They liked me and called me up to Joburg, and I've been here since. I started with The Citizen in October 21, and I moved up to Josie in April 2022, and I've been here since.
I watch a lot of YouTube, rugby YouTube, and a lot of the interviews and stuff. And then I know that you'd moved to Joburg and you're working for The Citizen, but I kind of heard this voice that I recognized. And I was like, there, Russ is hitting the big time now.
Yeah, that's definitely the difference between the Dispatch and the Citizen. The Dispatch was hyper local. So obviously the Dispatch falls under Arena Holdings brand now, which includes, their the Herald, the Sunday Times, all that kind of stuff. So any big stuff would be done by the guys up at the Sunday Times and stuff like that. And then all that kind of content the Dispatch would then use. So working there was just only local stuff. I did manage to go to a couple of Springbok games, I guess, in PE, which was cool at the time. But other than that, all local content. Whereas the Citizen is completely national. I'm the head rugby writer there. And so it's all about going to the national things, covering the Lions, the Springboks, all that kind of stuff. And I don't do any local stuff this side. So, yeah, that's the big difference.
That sounds awesome. I'm a little bit jelly as well, to be honest. But just to show you guys the kind of people that Ross has been interacting with, I've got some photos that I'm going to show you. And Ross, please want you to explain where this photo was taken, when it was, and basically how it happened. So the first photo I've got you, I'm just going to show it with my phone. That's the first one with you and Nas in the Curry Cup.
Funnily enough, that's the most recent one I did. I was invited by M Sports, who do a bit of work for the Curry Cup in promoting it and stuff, to a Curry Cup Trophy Tour chat with Nas and Victor Matfield last week, Thursday. And we had a really, really nice chat with those two. We spoke for over half an hour about the Curry Cup and different things to do with the competition and how it's sort of become a feeder competition, for the URC teams and for the Springboks. And they had some very interesting views between old Victor and Nas, which was really nice. And then after we spoke about the Curry Cup, we obviously delved into a bit of Springbok stuff. And that was also really cool, just to pick their mind. And, two former Springbok legends, both of them captained the Boks at a time. So that was really nice. Victor had some nice things to say, about us beating the All Blacks, 4 times in a row. He was in that 2009 Tri-Nations Springbok winning team that beat the All Blacks 3 times in a row. And then, funnily enough, he told us that year also he was the captain of the Barbarians, who beat the All Blacks that year as well. So Victor himself has beaten them 4 times in a row, which was quite cool because I'd completely forgotten that, And then, Nas also had some interesting things to say. One of the cool ones was when we asked him, about eventually when it's Russie's time to move on, what is he busy building a nice, group there to be able to take over from him? And Nas said, what, if Russie's the best, he must just keep coaching. If it's for the next 20 years, then that's that. And that's how he feels about it. He thinks, unless Russie wants to leave or unless the results aren't good enough, there's no reason for him to leave and he should just keep coaching. Anyway, and then so after the chat, I asked Nas if he'd take a picture with me and the trophy. And, I thought that trophy was quite special and heavy. You're not allowed touching it. And old Nas just bent down and picked it up and said, yeah, hold this with me. So, yeah, pretty cool moment to be able to touch the Curry Cup trophy with old Nas Botha, who I think won it, was it 8 or 9 times? Yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, man, because I thought there would be something like you got to wear gloves, you want to touch it, but how heavy was it?
It didn't feel too heavy. Nas was holding it mostly, but definitely not. It wasn't a struggle for him, and it wouldn't have been a struggle for me either. So it was surprisingly light. But I think also maybe the whole base wasn't completely there, And apparently they also got security guards who usually guard the cup, but it wasn't there in the room with us. But we saw the guys sort of walking in when we left. So they do have security guards for that cup, which was quite impressive.
Yeah, so I've got the second picture. The second picture it's you, it's Klobani Bobo and Skalk Berger. And I think at the back is Owen and Kamani.
Yeah, it's Owen and Jean de Villiers just behind him. So, yeah, that was last weekend at the Springboks All Blacks game in Cape Town. There was a seating chart in the media center for where we were supposed to sit, but there were no names on the tables, so I wasn't 100% sure where I was seated. So I thought I was either seated there or I was seated in the row behind me, but the row behind me was completely full. So I thought, if that is my row, someone's taken my seat. So I was just sitting there, and then it turned out to be Supersports Row. So all the Supersport presenters pulled in, and there was space for me. And I'm like, "Are you guys cool if I chill here?" And they said, "Yeah." So it was really awesome being able to sit with all those ex-legends and stuff. And I asked Bobes if him and Skulk would take a picture of me with me, and they did. And yeah, they were just really cool guys, to sit with. It was also really interesting to sit with them during the game because it, they were a lot more passionate and a lot more free about watching the game and cheering for the Boks and stuff compared to what you see when they're doing their interviews on Supersport. When they have to be a lot more professional, presentable, etc. And it was just really fun to see them in a different type of light, really being passionate Springbok fans, which is what they were on the day. And they were just absolutely loving the game. And every now and then, Bopes would tell me something or point out something in the game or something that he caught, which was really cool. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
We're at the opening game of the World Cup. I was actually sitting at a bar, and guess who rocks up? Scott Robinson and his wife, and they went to sit like 2 tables down from me. I said to the waiter when he took the beers there, I told him I'll pay for them. And then first he didn't want to, and then he said thanks, and then he asked me if I wanted a photo, and then I said, yeah, okay, why not? But I could also, I wasn't chatting to him that they were a little bit too far, but I could kind of see how, how he was acting, in a natural way, and supporting the All Blacks. So I'm sure that was really interesting. So the last two photos, these are actually photo bombs, which I found about you. I'm going to put it in for the viewers to see. The first one was here in the Rugby Pass. There was an interview with Damien McKenzie, and I was watching it, and I just saw this guy walking in the back. I was like, I know who that is. So that was pretty funny. And then another photo or video bomb was with Egg Chasers. I actually met him as well when I was at the World Cup. Also took a photo with him. But he was in the stadium, kind of taking a selfie video, and you were sitting in the back with your laptop there, but I could just see the cap. But I knew it was definitely you. So my question actually is, what are you doing during the game all the time on your laptop? Are you already starting to write, or are you just making notes of the match?
So, how we do Springbok games at the Citizen is my editor, he does a live blog during the game. So, if people aren't able to watch it on TV, they can get onto the Citizen webpage there and follow the match live reporting on a blog. And then on my front, I need to sort of follow the game, see what happens, and take down key moments during the match. And then straight after the match, I need to get a report up online focusing on sort of the key moments in the game, the big things that happened, things that caught my attention, and get out a story to that like that. So that's how we do the match. And then following that, we then go to the press conferences, interview the players, the coaches, etc., and then do follow-ups on that from that. But in terms of at games, during Springboks, I'm doing key talking points. And then for some others, for instance, like at the Lions game yesterday, I was just doing a straight match report. So really, it depends how big the game is, and then we decide, what we need to get out content-wise onto our site, and then we do that.
Okay, so it's not just I'm there to enjoy the match; it's a full-on work.
Yeah, unfortunately, you don't really get to enjoy the match, as a fan when you're working. You've always got to be watching while also writing. Trying to catch as much. Sometimes you miss some things. So that's when you've got to check out on the stadium TV, what happened there, etc., etc. So it's work, but it's also really cool that, I'm able to go to all these games, which is something I would never be able to do as a fan. You definitely wouldn't have the money to follow the Springboks around the country, watch them at Loftus, then Ellis Park, then Cape Town Stadium, Bombela Stadium. So it is work, but it's also really cool at the same time.
Okay, awesome, Ross. And so last question from my side. This is a podcast about border grassroots. So I want to know from you, which border players have you've probably interviewed a lot, but I mean, which border players that you've interviewed stand out for you? Because I know you've also interviewed Mapimpi still in his early days.
Oh, well, you mentioned Mapimpi, and he's one of my favorite stories. He's like the true testament of what talent is out there that unfortunately 90% of the time that it doesn't come through because of circumstances. Mapimpi never went to a Model C school. He started, his main rugby in the township in Dunsane, playing club rugby before being found by Border. Then obviously he absolutely dominated for Border. Kings, Cheetahs, Sharks, Springboks, the rest is history. So, that story on top of, the struggles that he's had, definitely one of my favorite stories in rugby. And, first time I interviewed him was, must have been, 2014 or so, I think. He'd scored 4 tries in a Vodacom Cup game, and he'd been named man of the match. He couldn't speak English. So there was also a journalist at the game who I asked to, relay my questions to him. And then I had to record his answers. And then I had to get someone at the office to, translate them for me. Quite an interesting way to get a story out of a player. And then, obviously as he moved on to the Kings, the Cheetahs, he started learning English. And by the time of the 2019 World Cup, I did a full-on interview with him before that competition, with him speaking great English. It was so different to when I first interviewed him. So it was really cool to see how he grew, and he was able to learn English and all that kind of stuff as he, went higher in rugby. So that was pretty cool. Other Border guys I've interviewed, obviously Lucanio who's he's a really cool guy, but he's very reserved. I don't think I'm stand to be corrected, but I feel like he doesn't really enjoy the spotlight that much. It doesn't seem to me that he really enjoys, being interviewed a lot and stuff like that. But very cool guy and a great player as well. Other Border players, can't really think of too many. Obviously, Jaden Hendricks is another guy I've interviewed, although he never played for Border. He schooled up in Durban and represented the Sharks before the Springboks. But him and Jordan Hendricks are both from King Williamstown, similar to Lucanio. So they're also from the region. And we've had some great players coming through from here, from the Border region. And that's where, I really hope, what I've always wished for is that, SA Rugby would be willing to open like a sort of an academy in the region or something, because, in terms of transformation and, bringing through as many quality black players as possible, there's no better place than the Border region to find those players. And, we got a huge area like the former Transkei, where there's just absolutely nothing. No one's trying to find players there. There must be so much untapped talent in that region. But unfortunately, there's no one to go and get that talent, Unfortunately, Border Rugby went through such a difficult phase. They don't have money and resources to be able to do it. So I've always thought it would be lovely if SA Rugby stepped up and said, we'll go and find those players. But obviously it's something difficult to do at that level.
Yeah, bro, that would be amazing. And to be honest, that's one of my dreams, to actually help establish something like that. So stay tuned. Let's see what's going to happen in the future. But it's really, to me, it's a gold mine. As someone once said to me, I think it was Bongani actually from the Ubombo Academy. He said to me that it's gold, but it's stuck in a gold mine.
Hey, Ross, man.
What's up, Wings?
It's so lucky to... how's it going, man? It's so lucky to hear from you, bro, and chat with you. And I'm so glad that you found rugby, like you focused on rugby as your sport, because we know how passionate you are about the game. The viewers won't know, but we've got a group, a friendship group on WhatsApp with the Poon handlers, and we know how passionate you are about your rugby and all of that. So I'm so happy that rugby is what you're covering, and you do a great job at it, man. One question I have is, what's the traveling like?
Yeah, so obviously Springbok season's a lot of traveling. The rest of the year, I'm pretty focused on the Lions and occasionally the Bulls in Pretoria. So obviously a lot of traveling between Joburg and Pretoria for that. But obviously, Springbok season is following the team around, and the travelling is usually pretty chilled. I fly to most places. The only places they wouldn't really fly me to are Bloem and Mbombela, because they say those are close enough to drive, so those I'd have to drive to. Didn't go to the Bloem game this year because I added a few extra days onto my trip to Cape Town, with the Springboks All Blacks being a bigger game. Um, uh, but I did go to Mbombela a couple of years ago, 2022 it was. That was for the All Blacks as well. And I drove up there, and it was actually a really nice drive. It took about 4 hours, I think. But, really nice country up here, the highways were also nice and big, so you never really got stuck behind trucks and all that kind of stuff. And it was a pleasant trip to Mbombela. So I'd say that's probably the furthest that I've driven in terms of going to box. The rest, they obviously just fly you to the city, and then either you use Uber or you rent a car and then just go around the city. So that's sort of the travel situation with it.
Nice, bro. I'm super jealous, bro. It's like I think like for me or Ivan, we'd like love being in that position, like just rubbing shoulders with those guys, being like having that backstage access and access to like rubbing shoulders with the box and being around those guys. Like that must be lekker, man. Tell us, who's the most intimidating guy that you've come across?
I think it's a little bit different in terms of media and covering guys in terms of intimidation, because guys sort of need to tone themselves down for it. They need to be so proper and serious, and so you don't really get that intimidation coming through. They all usually are pretty relaxed. Some are comfortable with interviews, some aren't. So that's sort of really the main difference. So you don't really come across, as I said, a big intimidation, like where we've interviewed guys like Eben and Orgia, who, are absolute monsters on the field. And, you'd usually be terrified of them, but they come off very nicely and chilled and actually quite funny at times when you interview them and chat them. So in that situation, unfortunately, as I said, you don't really feel that intimidation. But I must say, our captain, Sia Khaleesi, is just one of the most amazing guys to interview and, chat to. And he really is just such a good, he's so good for the game of rugby in South Africa, and he's just such a lekker oak. One of the things I'll always remember about him is he doesn't do it every single press conference, but he usually does the Friday press conferences with them, Zwandile Stick, and they both are thoroughly entertaining. Along with Rassie, I'd say that those three are my favorite guys to interview in the Springbok setup. And I remember every now and then Sia will come in maybe 20 minutes early before a press conference, and he'll come and shake every single journalist's hand in the room and say, hello, how are you doing? And it's just such a really nice personal touch. As I said, he doesn't do it at every single one, but he does it occasionally. And when he does that, it makes you feel quite special that, he doesn't just come sit behind the table like most people do and just get on with it. So, Sia Khaleesi is definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, I was going to ask you who the nice guys are as well and so on. And tell me, Rosso, so do you get to go to the after parties? Do you ever get invited to, I know you get backstage access there to the Bok game. What happens after the game? Do the journalists get together? Do you guys go and have a beer? Do you ever get invited to the fun stuff?
Yeah, well, definitely not to like the Bok things. Obviously, as a journalist, they don't want you in there. They're going to be having a jaw, especially after they win, or they're going to be bleak after they lose. So definitely not invited to box after parties and stuff. But as journalists, we obviously focus on our work first, get that stuff out the way. And if it's not too late and the Oaks are keen, we'll link up and have a beer somewhere. Sometimes we'll go to a pub, or there's always beers in the media room afterwards. So sometimes we'll just chat and have some beers there. And then Oaks, if they don't have too much work in the morning, might suggest, hey, let's go to a pub or something somewhere in the city. And then you'll go out and check the vibe. I was a bit too busy now in Cape Town with stuff, so I didn't go out afterwards. But I had a couple of beers in the media room before I left, and yeah, no, it's always a lekker vibe, especially when the guys win.
Do you still smash 12 castle lights? Man can.
Not as many, but we can still put a few away. Ivan mentioned Jim at the start of the podcast, and we had a few when I was in Cape Town. I went to his place, so yeah, when we want to, we do it.
Tell me, Rosso, are you a single man up in Joburg?
Yes, still a single man up here, still trying to sort of work my way here. Unfortunately, with sport journalism, it's quite difficult to have a bit of a life outside of work because you work most weekends, like 90% of weekends I'm working, and got time off in the week, which then most people just want to chill and sleep because they're working. So quite a tricky one to balance, but
It's probably hard to settle down, yeah, because you're busy on the weekends or something. But I mean, you can have some fun, Ross. I mean, there must be hordes of girls just following the Bok team. And what I would do if I was single, I'm married, but I mean, if I was single, I would uh, I would feed off the scrap.
oh no, yeah.
Yeah, like you can invite them into your media room and so on. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's not, unfortunately, it's definitely not possible, especially for Springbok stuff. There's lots of security. You've all got to have your media tags. It's the only way you're getting in there. So that's not really possible.
so what if myself and Ivan rock up there, if we decide to go to Joburg and watch a game or whatever the case may be, we're not going to get some special treatment there. You're not going to allow us into the back room, like,
Probably not if it
and
was Springboks. If it was Lions, maybe I could make a plan, chat to the guys there, see what's happening. But Springboks, you ain't getting nowhere, unfortunately.
But anyways, I think we're going to end this off with some quick fire questions for Ross. So Ross, I've just got 3 questions. First thing that comes to mind, of course. Okay, first question. Most nervous you've been in an interview?
I don't know. I've never really had nerves. I can't really think of, especially nowadays, a lot of interviews are done with multiple journalists. So not really one on one. So that sort of takes quite a bit of the nerves away. We're all in the same thing. One on one wise, I actually can't really think of that. That was a bit of a tough one. I guess, when I was at the Dispatch, all my interviews were either telephonic or in person. And I guess just from there, I learned, how to deal with people one on one. So even though now it's a lot, bigger oaks who I'm interviewing, it's just part of the job really now.
Second question. What's the favorite interview that you've done?
My favorite interview. Well, this Nas and Vic one last week was really cool. That was definitely one of my favorites. Other than that, some players, personal interviews. One of the guys I've really enjoyed was Ron Fenter with the Lions. He's a up and coming youngster who's made his book debut earlier this season. He was quite cool to chat to. I think the players are always my favourite ones. They're a bit more laid back than the coaches and stuff. So Jordan Hendrickson was also quite a lekker guy that I've interviewed. And it's always interesting to see stuff from the players' perspective and their feelings. So, I don't really have a ultimate favourite. I'd say Vic and Nas come really close because that was also in a situation where, they were able to be very free in how they spoke, which is a really big thing compared to a lot of the time the guys are almost like scripted and sort of need to follow a certain standard, which is why, as I said, Rassie, Stick, and Sia are sort of my favorites because they also have a bit more freedom than most to sort of go off script, which makes it a lot more interesting.
All right, last question. What's your favorite match that you've been to?
Springboks against All Blacks in Mbombela 2022. That was an amazing game. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So in terms of the actual game on the field, I'd say that was my favorite. Favorite vibe was also 22. It was Springboks against Wales in Cape Town. That was for Eben Etzebeth's 100th Springbok game. and the vibe was electric. I've never had a vibe that great at a rugby stadium before, and obviously I think that was due to a few factors, including Etzebeth being from that area. It was his 100th, and also that was the first time we'd had full stadiums again for Springbok games since COVID. I think the URC final like a month before that had been half a stadium, and just the vibe was absolutely amazing. So, favorite vibe was definitely Springbok Wales in Cape Town, and favorite game Boks against All Blacks in Bombela.
Awesome. Well, Ross, I want to say thanks a lot for joining us. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure Coach Wings has as well. And if the viewers want to hear Ross again on the pod in the future, please comment below. I'm sure you would have found it very interesting as well.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks for coming over. And Jamie, this one's for you. We love you, bud.
3, 2, 1. Cheers. Thanks
Cheers.
for watching.
Uh,